Saving money on groceries is about to get even easier because a brand new Walmart Neighborhood Market is opening soon near you. Enjoy low prices you can trust every day on your grocery favorites like fresh produce, quality meats, and more. Plus, Walmart's friendly pharmacists can take care of all your prescription needs. At Walmart Neighborhood Market, shopping and saving are simple and convenient.
Your new Walmart Neighborhood Market opens August 31st at the corner of West Side Boulevard and West Park Avenue in Houma.
Save money, live better, Walmart.
Welcome to Blog Talk Radio in high fidelity.
Join us for today's episode of the Utopian Realities Slope, Save Life on Planet Earth Blog Talk Radio show, bringing you solution bearers with practical, proven, scientific ways to help you eliminate global level irradiation and extinction level threats from your body, and bringing forward the means to restore and sustain global waters, air, soil, and sentient life. Welcome. Greetings, this is Lisa Wolf, your host. Welcome to the Utopian Realities from Concept to Planetary Restoration, Slope, Save and Sustain Life on Planet Earth, Earth Aid, Saturday Solution Bearers Forum, where we give people with real solutions and insights into global transformation and healing, a platform to inform you, the listeners, about ways to better your life today. Please join the live chat on the program page, and to ask questions or comment, phone 845-277-9359. Our guest today, Barry Carter, one of the lead researchers into the properties and benefits of the Ormus mineral nutrients, has been working in this area for over 20 years and offers Ormus information and his time freely to anyone interested. Ormus, a group of newly discovered essential mineral nutrients, has great benefits for plants, animals, and people, doubling plant growth, increasing animal endurance, and promoting brain coherence in people. Most people report feeling better when they use Ormus concentrates. Barry says he consistently feels better at age 67 than he ever felt as a teenager. He's created over 80 local and global Ormus forums for people to share their Ormus experiences, and you can join these groups. He also moderates several of the largest Ormus groups on Facebook. Again, please join the live chat on the program page and phone 845-277-9359 to join the conversation. Welcome, Barry.
Thank you.
So tell us something about your journey in discovering Ormus.
Well, a friend of mine called me, a local friend, and said that something that happened to me back in the late 80s, or that I heard about in the late 80s, was explained by a gentleman named David Hudson. David Hudson is was an Arizona cotton farmer, and he discovered some minerals, or rediscovered some minerals that seem to have very unusual properties. Some of the properties that he described were quantum properties, levitation, teleportation, and superconductivity of thoughts. And this matched up pretty well with the experience that I'd had back in that I'd heard of back in 1989 or so. And I heard about David Hudson in 1995. And so I thought, well, this is very interesting. I'm going to look into it because it matched up a lot with the environmental and spiritual path that I've been on for many years, since the 70s. In 1970, I did a 3-year raw food diet, raw organic for 3 years, starting on January 1st, 1970. And one thing that I've noticed in all of this is that food doesn't taste good anymore. Red delicious apples taste like cardboard. They don't taste delicious at all. And they've changed the main apples that you buy at the supermarket. It's hard to get red delicious anymore because nobody wants them. They just don't taste good. And other foods, same thing. Back in the 60s and 70s, food tasted good. More food tasted a lot better. I went to Baja, the Gulf of Baja, in Mexico, and had a carrot that was grown near the Gulf, and it tasted like carrot juice. It was the best tasting carrot I'd ever had. But I do remember when I planted my first organic garden back in 1969 or 70, that carrots tasted pretty good then. And anymore, they don't. So I figured, well, there's something going on here. Why is this? Why do these things taste so much better? Why do things taste so much worse now? And why do we occasionally find things that taste better? And when I heard about the Ormus mineral nutrients, the first implication that was mentioned by David Hudson was that it improves our spiritual connection and may have health benefits. But I worked with figuring out ways to concentrate these minerals for myself. And I heard of a fellow up in north central Washington State, about a mile from Canada. We call him the Essene, because he claims he remembers a past life where he was collecting these minerals on the Dead Sea as an Essene. And he explained an easy way of concentrating the minerals. You take sea salt or seawater and mix it with other water and raise the pH to 10.78 and no higher using lye, also called sodium hydroxide. And when you do that, you get a white precipitate, and he gave me the example of, well, he was using it on his plants, his trees. He had 7 walnut trees, and one of them, he put these minerals on, and a little bit may have gotten on another tree that was kind of near it. The tree that got the Ormus mineral nutrients, the Ormus concentrate from seawater, was about 5 times the size as the other trees. They were all purchased at the same nursery, and they were all the same size when he first planted them. And after about 3 years, the one that he put the minerals on was probably 4 times the size. I have pictures.
Wow.
On my website. And these walnuts, I never liked walnuts. They were always too bitter. But I actually tasted one of these walnuts. I got some. He gave me some of these walnuts, and I like to put them in my pocket when I do presentations, and then from behind the podium and reach down and pull them out and say, who'd like to see my giant nuts? And people laugh, and then I pull them out, and still have them. They were about the size of a lemon or a tennis ball.
Wow.
And when I was doing the presentations, after I'd had them for probably 5 or 6 years, I dropped one and it broke. And I still have the shell and everything, but I figured, well, I may as well taste the walnut. It's probably gone bad, Haven't had it for 5 years. It was the best walnut I've ever tasted. It tasted good. It wasn't bitter. It was sweet and really delicious. So
wow,
that was an indicator to me that this stuff, along with the size of the nuts, that was an indicator that there was more nutrition in them. Nutrition is strongly related to taste. And so I started making this precipitate. It's white and kind of fluffy, and I started making it in about 1998. My first taste of Ormus was the guy that I was working with, a guy named Jim, introduced me to. He made some back in 1996. That was my first taste, but I started making my own. And there are other ways of concentrating it. People often confuse the white precipitate that you make from seawater or sea salt mixed with water for Ormus. It's not Ormus. It contains Ormus. And what we want people to understand is that it's very confusing to call it Ormus without the qualification that it's mostly magnesium hydroxide. And it's like, I'd say 70% magnesium hydroxide and 30% Ormus elements. And the 3 main Ormus elements are rhodium, iridium, and gold. And in the Ormus form, they're not toxic metals. They're not metals at all. Metals have to have metal-metal bonds. And these are totally isolated. That's why we consider this to be a different state of matter. Various researchers, since we first figured out about these things, that they were in seawater and so on, have converted metal into edible white powder. One guy converted 25 metals into an edible white powder in 25 different actions. He did them individually. And so that's a good indication that that these elements are what we think they are, and that they're not metals, because many of these 25 metals are toxic. Most of them are, as metals. But in the Ormus form, they seem to be very beneficial. Now, the evidence that they're beneficial is, as I mentioned earlier, when you put them on plants, plants grow better, faster, use less water, and they taste better and feel better. When you eat them, you feel better than when you eat a typical SAD diet, Standard American Diet, SAD. And most people, now this is just a hypothesis, but people are often hungry and they eat junk food and they're still hungry. And I think that they're still hungry because they're not getting all the nutrients they need in the food they eat. And the FDA and other regulatory agencies say you've got to have so much of potassium and nitrogen and so on in your food. Well, these minerals, the Ormus minerals, aren't in their requirements. And so they've figured out ways to grow food that replaces nitrates and nitrate fertilizer and potassium and phosphorus and some of the nutrients, but not all of them. And if all of the nutrients aren't there and you eat the food, you're still hungry because you're not getting all the nutrients you need in the food you eat. Does that make sense?
Right. Yes, it does. It does.
And so you're still hungry. Go ahead.
So what does Ormus stand for?
Well, the original word that David Hudson proposed was orbitally rearranged monoatomic elements, ORMES, or ORME. And we don't know that they're orbitally rearranged, and we don't know that they're monatomic. So he also suggested that orm is very similar to the word ormus in ancient literature. And orm and ormus have the same meanings in some of these ancient texts. So he would sometimes refer to them as orms and sometimes as ormus. So since ormus isn't an acronym, we decided to call it Ormus because it isn't an acronym. That hasn't been proven. So using that, I've figured out a whole bunch of different acronyms we could use that mostly relate to soil and plants and that sort of thing. But I like to use capital letters because I think it's important.
So tell us something about the association then with ancient alchemy and what we're looking at here in terms of that tradition and that search.
Well, we heard there are many references in Vedic texts, and even in the Bible. There's a whole number of them about something called manna. Manna came out of the sky and hit the earth, and crystals grew out of it, according to the Bible. And people would eat that and survive on it. It was all they needed to survive as Moses led people from Egypt to Israel. And they lived on the manna from heaven. And this sounds a lot like the properties of Ormus. The Ormus elements are in the air. You can collect them and concentrate them from dew that falls on your plants. Comes out of the sky. The friend that I first had an experience with Ormus that made some from metal. A guy named Jim. He literally built a magnetic trap and trapped Ormus out of the air and converted it to metal to prove that it was what he thought it was. I don't want to know how he converted it to metal because I don't want attention from the precious metal industry. That's something that you don't want to mess with them. But Jim's Ormus concentrate from the air was only about 5% gold. Mostly was Ormus copper and other elements. So different elements are in different natural sources. Now, Jim invented the magnetic trap. And the magnetic trap is you take water or air and spin it in a magnetic field. And the magnetic field repels the Ormus in the water and concentrates it. A good example is a very simple trap called the stratifying trap, or also call it a tin can trap. You take a soup can, put a strong magnet on the bottom of it, and pour water in it and stir the water. And you do that for, every few minutes for an hour. And then take an eyedropper and pull an eyedropper full of water out of the center at the top of the open can. And that will often have an Ormus feel to it. Some people say it gives them the whirlies. I think the whirlies are the effect of when you're in a brain coherent state. It's like being in a meditative state. Have you ever meditated?
Yes. Yes, I do.
When you meditate, you get a feeling of coherence, of togetherness, of unity, being calm unity, right? I think calm unity builds community. I think that their calm unity is a very important part of community. And when people are in a state of calm unity, they get along with other people better. And the Ormus minerals, one of the best studies we've had on them was an Ormus provider named Thomas Geckler. He has CherokeeGold.net, and Thomas hooked 10 people up, or 11 people up to electroencephalogram, brainwave monitor. And when they were hooked up to the brainwave monitor, he measured the balance of their brains, whether their brains, left brain and right brain, were coherent, and the frequency. And then he gave them some of his trap water, magnetic trap water, and then measured again. And within minutes after taking the trap water, they went into a brain coherent state that they weren't in before. These were people that had never meditated at all, but they went into a state that's associated with deep meditation. People that have meditated for 30 years often get into that state, but people that haven't meditated for 30 years don't. Well, these people went into that brain coherent state within minutes. So that's some of the best science we've got on brain coherence, on human consciousness. This is related to a lot of things that I'm sure you're interested in, because being in that state, being in a cooperative or a coherent state of mind helps you to work cooperatively with other people. And that's one of the most important things for guarding life on Earth. We're depleting our soil. We're depleting our nutrition. We're putting people in a state of conflict and opposition to one another. And if we can get people in a more coherent state, and our food in a more coherent state, then things seem to work better. And the Ormus minerals seem to do that. They may also help things like radiation. I suspect that
Is
radiation
there evidence of that?
Not much. People have had improvements after being exposed to X-rays. And people have had improvements after using cell phones or Wi-Fi. But
what kind of improvements?
Feeling better. And chemotherapy and radiation therapy for cancer, the effects of that are in some ways worse than the cancer. People have recovered from those effects. Not a lot, but there are a few reports of people recovering from those effects after the use of Ormus. My hypothesis is that the Ormus improves coherent communication between the cells of the body. And when that cellular coherence is enhanced, the DNA, I think the DNA is like an antenna that connects us to a non-physical pattern, spirit DNA or something like that. And that non-physical pattern helps everything grow right. But if we do things that damage the DNA, chemicals and radiation and so on, then we quite possibly are killing the Ormus that's in our DNA. And that connects us to the non-physical DNA. I think the DNA is it's like an antenna or a internet connection, a modem or a router or something. You know, it connects us to the internet, not internet, internet. And when we improve the connection to the internet, the original DNA pattern is restored to our body. And I think that the Ormus elements, because they appear to connect with one another and resonance connect with each other, they carry the information. It's like they're the wire that connects us to the inner net. And when you improve that connection, plants grow better and healthier. Animals regrow missing appendages. And people go into a more brain coherent state. It would explain about almost all, or maybe all of the effects that people have documented with the Ormus minerals.
Well, Terry, let's take a short break and listen to a piece of music from Eostar Kamala and Web of One, who's going to be our guest tomorrow, and a word from our sponsor, and then let's come back and talk about some of these amazing things that that Ormus has done and can do.
Great.
Everything comes from the moon. Allow it, allow it, allow it to bloom. Under the sun, everything sings of the love between the king and the queen. Trying to the form of who I am, appears like empty desert sand. The most direct path is often the wrong way. Opposites will move, but the moment will stay. Illuminate
Welcome, listeners. We're here with Barry Carter talking about Ormus and restoring the garden. Welcome back, Barry.
Thank you.
So we're hearing some amazing reports about regrowth of the body. Can you talk about that at all? What?
Yeah. One of your previous guests, a lady named Dana Dudley, has a cat. Her cat's name is Tut. Tut lost his tail when the edge of a roof fell on it, and in a windstorm, and Dana had only had this cat for a rather short time, and she was just starting her Ormus journey with some products that she now sells, and also some products that other people sell, and she was using some skin cream called Cleopatra's milk. And the Cleopatra's milk comes from priestessalchemy.com. I think you can still get it. And she would put this on her hands, and her cat named Tut, after he'd lost his tail, would come over and lick her hands. And so she'd put more of the Cleopatra's milk in her hand. And I mean, this is skin cream. It doesn't taste good. And the cat would just lick it up. I have a video of her putting, I'd say, a tablespoon, 3 teaspoons of this stuff in the palm of her hand, and the cat licking it up, and then she puts more, and he licks it up, and puts more, and he licks it up again. And within a few weeks, his tail started to regrow. I visited her when his tail was half regrown, and took a video of her feeding Cleopatra's milk. And I mean, this was just amazing. You can't get a cat to eat something it doesn't like very easy at all. It's like herding cats.
Right.
And he just loved this stuff. He just lapped it up. And after about a year, his tail was completely regrown. So that's not possible according to conventional science. Mammals don't regrow appendages.
I saw some pictures also of changes in teeth with use of Ormus.
Mm-hmm.
Can you speak about that?
Sure. The lady in central Michigan used some trap water from her well on her property. And they made a trap, and it's called the winter sink trap. And you can search on subtleenergies.com for winter sink trap, and you'll find examples on how to make it and so on. And she was using trap water from her well, and her tooth filled in. it had a cavity, and part of it was broken, and it started repairing itself. Now,
over what period of time?
Over less than a year. I think it was a few months. It's the whole story is on my website, and you can probably find it linked from the index on my website, and it's on reports and Trap Water Diary is what it's called, and the subtleenergies.com/ormus/TWDIARY.htm, and the whole report and the pictures are linked there. And go ahead.
And I've seen pictures of changes in hair color, gray hair regaining its color. Is that your experience?
I've had an experience with that, and others have had it as well. My hair is grayer than it was a few years ago, but I'm only 67, and my hair color seems to depend on how much Ormus copper I'm taking. Copper has been associated with hair color as well, and the Ormus copper seems to be even more associated with it. Different Ormus minerals work differently for different people. Taking Ormus copper and eating refined sugar isn't a good way to restore your hair color. I haven't eaten any refined sugar that I know of since 1970 or 1969, 68, somewhere in there. But
wow,
the hair color seems to be related to B vitamins and copper, Ormus copper. So one thing to do would be to get an Ormus copper supplement, and the other would be to make sure you've eliminated junk food and sugar and that sort of thing, and increase your B vitamins. All nutrients work better with other nutrients. Duh.
So how do you incorporate Ormus minerals into your daily life?
I use Ormus concentrated from seawater, and sometimes I use products that other people send me. There's many Ormus providers out there. I sent you a link to my Easy page. I think you put it up on your website.
Mm-hmm.
And there's on the Easy page, there's a link to sources. And so I definitely would recommend that people check out the sources that are there. I also take Ormus copper from a couple of different sources, and you'll have to search through the sources to find them. But lately I haven't been taking Ormus copper because I'm going to try some nutrients that are topical that David Wolf, not related to you, right?
No, he is my cousin, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
Well,
yes, he is my cousin. Mm-hmm.
That David Wolf has been talking about, and you can find videos on YouTube with hair color restoration, and David Wolf, I think, if you just Google the two. And so I'm gonna try some of that. My hair is thicker and less. I've lost less of my hair. I'm not getting bald nearly as much as my younger brothers. I have, people say I have the skin of a 30-year-old. Hope I don't have to give it back.
So, what diet do you follow then as well, Barry? I mean, what's your regimen?
Lacto-vegetarian. I eat fermented milk products, yogurt, cheese, cottage cheese, mostly yogurt and cheese, and almost 100% organic. And I eat a salad every day. And I've been eating raw chips, sweet spirulina sprouted bites lately a lot. I'd say probably 70% raw in my diet. I do eat honey and tahini, and that's about it.
And,
and I'm a rapper.
when you make, I'm sorry?
I'm a rapper. I make salad wraps. Salad wraps every
salad.
Almost every day. I wrap them in a tortilla. Milk, cheese.
So are you making?
Go ahead.
Are you making your own Ormus? And if so, which method are you using?
I sometimes do, but lately I don't have time to do my own. So I use various products that are available on the sources page. I also have lately been using some of the Ormus that my friend Jim made. And when I was taking the seawater Ormus concentrate, I didn't remember my dreams. But since I've been taking the HR that Jim made, I've been remembering my dreams more. I don't know if that's due to just waking up at the end of the dream or dreaming more. I'm not sure. But it's a very, very much more vivid than than my dreams were when I was just taking the seawater concentrate from Ormus.
So what benefits would listeners see in doing Ormus?
And most people would like to feel better. Very few people would like to feel worse.
This is true. I can't think of anybody who would.
No.
And how much
people,
Ormus in the course of the day?
Most of the people like to eat food. Or I'd say most people need to eat food. And eating food, you've been experiencing a bit of drought, right?
Yes.
And the whole southwest area of the United States is having pretty serious drought issues. And the Ormus minerals, if you put them on your ground, when plants don't get enough food, enough of the nutrients they need in the water that they pull in through their roots, they transpire more water out of the leaves and pull more water in through the roots, right? They waste water, basically. And when people aren't getting all the nutrients, they just eat more food. Well, plants live on nutrients they pull in from the soil and water. So basically they're eating more food, only it's mostly water. Water, I think that 1/8 of the weight of water is Ormus, the Ormus minerals in the water. If you make water by burning hydrogen and oxygen, H2O, pure H2O, it's very toxic. You cannot drink it. There's something in water and nobody knows what it is. Nobody knows what it is the basic nature of Ormus. In fact, manna, the word manna, is a euphemism for what is it? Ormus is a mysterious substance that I think is in all water, in all air, and in all soil, and on all rocks. But when we harvest food and ship it off-site and don't replace these nutrients, they're depleted. They're depleted down to a certain level. But that certain level is not enough for the health of plants and animals. And so when we replace these mineral nutrients with trap water or with Ormus concentrated from seawater or Ormus concentrated from rocks, I mean, there are ways to concentrate Ormus from rocks, then everything grows better and people feel better. And most people like to feel better. And everybody does, really.
Certainly.
But there are limits to any nutrients. Do you know that arsenic has recently been found to be an essential mineral nutrient at very low levels?
Really?
Yeah. Magnesium, which is an essential mineral nutrient, also has a level at which it is toxic. excessive use of magnesium supplements can be toxic. It's a quote from WebMD. So these, every nutrient has a level. If you breathe too much, hyperventilate, you'll pass out. Too much water will drown you. Everything has a appropriate level. So people often say, well, if a little bit's good, a lot is going to be better. That's not true. Also, different nutrients, or all nutrients, probably work better with other nutrients. Pure vitamin C can cause you to bruise easily if you don't get enough bioflavonoids with it.
So,
go ahead.
Are there salts that one should not use in making Ormus?
Well, there are salts that do not yield much precipitate, but they do yield a lot of live oil. This is something that I discovered when I was working with some of Jim's hot rocks, or HR. That's the stuff that I've been taking lately. I noticed that this 5-gallon bucket full of liquid, kind of a red liquid, had an oily sheen on top of it. And I thought, well, what is that oil? That looks like it might be something useful. So I poured the very top part off and then mixed it with some, I think I used olive oil at the time. Mixed it with some olive oil. And some of the water was still at the bottom, but some of the oil mixed with the olive oil. And then I put it on my hands, and it felt good. And I had a lady friend that I was, we were exchanging massages. That was about the extent of our relationship. And I gave her a back massage, and using this oil, and she had a, let's call it a Kundalini orgasm. She had an intense orgasmic experience all the way up her spine to her top of her head. I mean, it was very ecstatic for her. And the only difference was the live oil. And so that kind of helped me to conclude that this live oil has a lot of the Ormus. The Ormus elements seem to move from the salt into the oil, or seem to move from the oil on top of the HR, the hot rocks liquid, into the oil. So I thought, well, Celtic sea salt's a little bit oily. You ever used Celtic sea salt?
Yes.
It kind of has a little bit of an oily feel to it. So I mixed some Celtic sea salt and with oil, and it had a similar effect. And so then I tried other salts and other oils. I found that grapeseed oil is one of the most easily absorbable oil into the skin, so that seemed to enhance that. All of these things seem to have a youthing effect. I use the word youthing instead of anti-aging because it sounds like anti-Asian, and I'm not anti-Asian.
Yes, it's And that's probably more accurate too,
Hmm? Yeah.
and not opposed to something, just enhancing a
Exactly.
process.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so the youthing effect, I don't have nearly as many wrinkles. I mean, I have the same wrinkles that I had when I was in my 30s. I've got pictures on my youthing page, and I have less wrinkles than either of my younger brothers. So it really helps the skin, apparently. And so I mixed it with Celtic sea salt, and that worked good. There's another Ormus expert named Sharon Rose Ingersoll, and she's on Facebook, and she's got websites and so on. And she's been making what she calls live oil. I like that name. She takes different salts and mixes them with different oils. And then she takes these salt and oil mixes. Now the salt all goes to the bottom, but the Ormus seems to go from the salt into the oil. And the way she's proven this is she drives them around in the Bay Area of California, San Francisco Bay Area. She drives them around in her car. They're exposed to Wi-Fi and radio frequency, all kinds of electro smog. And she drives them around, and they escape from sealed containers. It's like they're teleporting out. And some of them do it quicker than others. And she found that one of the ones that did it the quickest was Himalayan salt mixed with various oils. And
when you say teleporting out, what do you mean?
She has glass jars with a tight lid on them, and the outside of the jar gets covered with oil, and oil shows up underneath the jar. So I always put them in a
wow, a sealed jar.
Yeah.
Wow.
And Jim noticed a similar thing with his trap water and some of his hot rocks, some of his HR stuff that would escape from sealed containers. And one jar was about half full, a glass gallon jug, and right at the level of the liquid, right at the top of the level of the liquid, he had it out in the sun, and thinking, well, they'd charge it up, and he went to pick the jar up, and the top of the jar came up, but the bottom didn't. It broke literally at the level of the liquid in the summer. So we think that maybe the stuff teleported halfway out, didn't quite make it, and rematerialized inside the glass and caused the glass to fracture right at the liquid level. A lot of our research, quote unquote, is very anecdotal. We've got a lot of stories like that, where Ormus gets into a light bulb and causes the light bulb to burn out, and gold forms on the inside of the light bulb, and it looks like a gold ring around at the level of the filament in the light bulb. That's something that another Ormus producer has demonstrated or showed me the light bulb. And so it's like figuring out what all of this means. I think what it means is that the Ormus elements have one leg in the physical and two legs in the non-physical. Most matter has two legs in the physical and one leg in the non-physical. Three-legged stool. And I think that the Ormus is more metaphysical, non-physical, and provides a connection to the non-physical. And that's why it has some non-physical behaviors, some spirit behaviors, or improves our connection to the internet and inner net and things like that.
Well, there are some people saying that as we move into a period of ascension, that we'll be moving the base metals, the lead and other things out of our blood and replacing with gold. That part of moving into the golden age is that transformation. Have you heard that being discussed in Ormus circles?
Yes, only it isn't gold metal. It's probably Ormus gold.
Right.
And mercury, I suspect that Ormus gold, the white powder of gold, is actually Ormus mercury. Gold well, I don't need to get into this, but gold has an uneven number of electrons, so all of the electrons can't be paired, and therefore it probably can't have an Ormus state. But mercury has an even number of electrons, and so if you convert Ormus gold to, gold, metallic gold to Ormus gold, you get a white precipitate that is not reactive. Then there's something in there that makes it more like Ormus mercury. I think Ormus mercury and Ormus gold are the same thing. And then when you convert it back, it comes out as gold. And that may be what the alchemists referred to as the mercury. Alchemical mercury is different from the element mercury. But anyway, another issue that you were talking about is detoxification, and people have reported that the Ormus elements seem to enhance detoxification, or Ormus concentrates. And this is another reason why stronger or purer isn't necessarily better. Because if you've got a lot of toxins in your body, you don't want to kick them all out all at once.
Right.
Because it feels awful. Detoxification doesn't feel good at all, or often doesn't feel good. And as these toxins are leaving the cells, they may kill your blood. And that wouldn't be good for you. Too much detox can be very harmful. So people say, well, I want the real thing. I want the strong stuff. Probably you don't. I've had some of the strongest stuff, but it was after going through a detox in the 70s when I did my raw food and 2 weeks of fasting and things like that. And my diet wasn't that terrible back then. But other people now, there's a lot more toxins around. So it could really knock you down. You had a question?
Yes. Well, talk about the process developed for making Ormus using lye, and how that is, since lye itself is incredibly, I guess toxic would be the word for it. So how does that process work?
You can purchase food-grade lye. Okay, lye is used in foods. The toxicity of lye is basically based on the fact that it dissolves, it combines with oils in your body and makes soap. Turns your body into soap, which isn't good. You don't want your skin to be soap. Or
right.
If you get lye in your eyes, you'll go blind because it combines with the oils, and oils are an essential nutrient in the body, and it changes them so that they're now water soluble and they will no longer hold together. That's the toxicity of lye. Now, when you raise the pH of seawater to 10.78, basically you're converting, using lye, the lye converts into salt and magnesium hydroxide, which is most of the white precipitate is magnesium. And magnesium hydroxide is an essential mineral nutrient. Salt is an essential nutrient. Of course, salt also has a toxic level, and magnesium has a toxic level. So, don't take too much and start slow. And no lye. I doubt that any lye exists in the washed precipitate after you've washed it a couple times. It's all been converted to magnesium hydroxide and salt, or salt and water. And so that's relatively safe. But even safer, if you take salt and add oil, take half a cup of salt and add in a 1 cup container, fill the rest of the container with grapeseed oil or sesame oil or your favorite oil, and put a lid on it and shake it, and let it sit for a week, and shake it every day or so, and leave it sitting leave the salt in the container, and you can start taking the oil off the top after a week, and the salt's all at the bottom, the oil's at the top, and you can put that on your skin, and you can put it on your salad, and you're getting the Ormus nutrients from the oil. And different oils and different salts will give you different Ormus nutrients, but still, it all seems to be fairly beneficial.
How about, I know this is a silly question, but I know some people will ask it, and I'm sure you've been asked before, what about like Morton's salt, table salt, iodized salt? Is there any benefit
doesn't seem to
in it?
Doesn't seem to be. Doesn't seem to be. Purified salt, all of the oily Ormus minerals have been removed, or most of them. It appears that there's a limit to how much of the Ormus minerals can be removed from water. At a certain point, water, I think that even distilled water, 1/8 of the weight of distilled water is the Ormus minerals, I think. Now, if you burn hydrogen and oxygen and you get water, it's toxic, quite toxic. And it weighs less than distilled water. So there's something in there, nobody knows what it is. And distilled water presumably is pure water, but the Ormus seems to go with the water. And that's probably the lower limit of how much Ormus is in water. Water that's concentrated from a spring may weigh the same, but it'll still have more Ormus in it. People have literally run a magnetic trap on water and gotten water. Ordinary water weighs 8.34 pounds per gallon. People have literally run traps on water and gotten water that weighs 10 pounds per gallon or 12 pounds per gallon.
Wow.
So there's something in there that nobody knows what it is. Well, we know, but most scientists will say, I don't know why it's that heavy. And my friend Jim has gotten as much as a pound of platinum out of a gallon of water. But the water weighed 12 pounds, or thereabouts.
Wow. So in moving it through the trap, it's actually attracting them and absorbing more elements?
Well, the trap concentrates the elements from the water so that the Ormus that goes to the top of the trap or that goes furthest from the magnet, it's repelled. The Ormus seems to be repelled by magnetic fields. And the stuff that gets away from the magnetic field is more concentrated, and that concentrated Ormus seems to be, the water seems to be more effective, and you get more metal out of it if you know how to convert it to metal, which I don't, and I don't want to know. But that is evidence of Ormus is in there.
Right.
One thing that Jim found was that one spring he got mostly platinum. Another spring he got mostly gold. So different water sources will have different mixes of the Ormus elements in them. And I think that may be related to why the lady's tooth regrew when she was drinking trap water from her well in Michigan. And other people haven't reported similar effects because different nutrients were there for her that weren't there for other people in other places.
Right, right. What about salt from the Great Salt Lake
They seem to
out there,
be a good
salt flat?
good source. People make Ormus concentrates from Salt Lake water or Salt Lake salt. Now, the Himalayan salt gets almost zero precipitate, very little precipitate from Himalayan salt. But the Himalayan salt seems to be the most potent for the live oil. So it depends also on the way you're concentrating the Ormus elements from it.
So how would you recommend then that people start incorporating Ormus into their lives?
Make some live oil. Make a tin can trap. If you've got a well or access to a well or a spring, do some trap water with a tin can and see how it feels. It's called a stratifying trap. You can Google stratifying on subtleenergies.com and you'll find it. Or go to the easy page, subtleenergies.com/Ormus/TW/easy.htm, and there's a link to the stratifying trap. And look at the easy page. There's a whole lot of other things on there. There's a link to the stratifying trap, other traps, and more Ormus concentration methods. Different sources and different methods give different results for different people. And there's an answer to the common question, what is the best Ormus for me? And the answer is, you are unique, just like everyone else. What is best for you will not be the same for everyone else. Each of us has different nutritional needs, and these needs change over time. What is best for you right now probably will not be what is best for you next year. The vendors listed on the sources page all have products that some people have found to be best at one time or another, and I've got a link to the sources page. And more complete answer on my frequently asked questions page, and links to forums. You mentioned in the intro that I've got lots of forums. Well, there's links to join the forums. Some of the forums are local. Like there's a forum for the Bay Area, and there's a forum for Seattle, Tacoma, and there's a forum for New York City, and there's a forum for Syracuse, New York, different forums for different places. And then a link to easy ways to keep Ormus around for a longer time to help prevent it from escaping. And the easy explanation is what you read in the intro. Ormus is a group of newly discovered mineral nutrients that have great benefits for plants, animals, and people. They double plant growth, increase animal endurance, and promote brain coherence in people. And there are links there. One of them doesn't work. The plant growth one doesn't. And there's an acronym there, Original Restoration Minerals Upgrade Soil, ORMUS. And everything is put in the easiest terms. Because go ahead.
So, are there any issues with shipping Ormus materials, and what is it best to keep Ormus in?
A lot of people ship it wrapped in foil. Aluminum foil seems to prevent certain energies from getting in and causing it to escape. Some people have reported that when they ship it, it gets out of the sealed containers, and so they wrap it in foil, and it seems to be better. Some of the really powerful stuff, I suggest you wrap it in foil, then wrap it in plastic, put the plastic in a steel can, wrap that in plastic, wrap that in foil, wrap that in plastic, and put it in another steel can. So you've got several layers of shielding. Like if you're going to ship it around the world and it's really potent stuff. That's how a friend ships some of the HR, which is one of the most potent Ormuses around, halfway around the world. And almost all of it was still in the container. Very little of it got out.
So it's one could call it a living substance, then, I suppose.
I think it is the wire that carries life. It carries information and energy into our body, and from our body into spirit. It's our connection to the internet. And yes, everything is living, in my opinion. But I could be wrong. I thought I was wrong once before. And I was wrong.
Well, let's take a break for a moment and listen to a piece from one of our slope artists, Anton Miserak, and we'll be right back to continue this conversation with Barry Carter on Ormus. Thanks, Barry.
You bet.
Would you like to get out of debt? Would you like to spend more time with your family? What would your life be like if you didn't have to worry about money? Hello, I have found a remarkable way to create a six-figure income, get out of debt, and earn 24-karat gold bullion in the process. You heard me right. Create a six-figure income, get out of debt, and earn 24-karat gold bullion in 12 months or less. Are you concerned about the economy and the rising cost of living? You should be. Everything is more expensive than it was a year ago. The endless printing of new money by the Fed has caused the value of existing dollars to shrink. That means you are being paid in dollars that are leaking value by the time they reach your checking and savings account, if you even have one anymore. The gap between the rich and the poor is widening. America's middle class is slowly disappearing, and our government is $18 trillion in debt and counting. The fact is, you cannot outrun inflation with an income earned in a shrinking currency. So what can you do? The answer is surprisingly simple. Instead of living off credit or working a second job, you must learn to do what the 1% does. Create an appreciating asset that spins off passive residual income. Are you teachable, coachable, and ambitious? Are you willing to step outside your comfort zone, learn the truth about money, and start thinking outside the box you were taught to stay in? Are you willing to put in the time and effort whenever and wherever you can? What you're going to hear about is not some MLM pie-in-the-sky opportunity to sell your neighbors something they don't even want. You don't need to sell anything. Ask yourself this question. In the times we're living in today, do you think there are any people out there who'd like to know about a legitimate business strategy to create a six-figure income in as little as 90 days and earn 24-karat gold bullion and doing what you're doing? You will continue to get what you've always been getting. For things to change and get better, something and/or someone has to change. Thanks for listening.
For more information, visit slope.thecarrotgroup.com.
Welcome back. This is Lisa Wolf with Slope Earth Aid with Barry Carter. And that was a word from one of our sponsors, Carrot Bars, talking about moving people from fiat currency to investment in gold, which seems a little appropriate considering we're talking about Ormus as a vehicle for self-transformation in these times. Hi, Barry.
Hi, Lisa. Well, here's an interesting thing. You can eat Ormus gold. You can't eat metallic gold.
This is true. You can't eat metallic gold at all. So you've been actually using Ormus now for a number of years. Is it going on
20?
20?
Yep. Yes.
And you say that you feel better now than you did when you were a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so are you using it in your gardens there as well?
Yes, I haven't had time to grow my garden for a long time, but I do put it on my fruit trees. And my apples were about 3 times the size as my neighbor's apples this year. And my plums are about 3 times the size as my neighbor's plums, and they're both from the same parent tree. I mean, both of the younger trees grew from the same parent tree. And I put the Ormus minerals from seawater or from trap water concentrates on the trees, and they grow bigger and better and healthier.
So how do you put it on the trees then when you're applying it? How often?
I water it around the drip line of the tree about twice a year. About a cup of seawater precipitate on each tree, or a cup of trap water concentrate on each tree. Twice a year.
So just twice a year?
By what?
Yeah. Just twice a year then?
Yeah. It's a very, very low application rate for these minerals.
So when we spoke about getting together, you said that what you wanted to title the talk was Garden Life on Earth. Do you want to talk about the larger vision and what you see?
Here's what I've written about that. Most people have a favorite disaster scenario. Some favor global warming, others favor peak oil. Financial collapse is a favorite of many people, but geological cataclysm is favored by others. Regardless of which disaster you may favor, the most immediate problem that develops as a result of any disaster will be related to food shortages. Already it's estimated that 1 billion people are starving on Earth. Most disasters reduce food production or availability. Climate change causes flooding, drought, and unseasonable freezes, which all reduce food production. Peak oil reduces the availability of petrochemicals for fertilizer and pesticides, as well as fuel to transport food for long distances. Financial collapse makes it more difficult for everyone to produce and purchase food. Geological cataclysm can even cause an ex-president to apologize for policies that reduce the local food supply in Haiti in favor of imported rice from the USA. Even social disasters are most likely to cause suffering through starvation. When the structures we have built to serve us lose their way and begin to believe that we are here to serve them, they try to monopolize our sources of supply, whether these are corporate structures, government structures, belief structures, or religious structures. Does not change this pattern. Regardless of one's favorite disaster, certain things are helpful for people in our community. Here are some things I think we all need. Clean air to breathe, clean water to drink and bathe in, nutritious food to eat, energy for heating, cooling, lighting, transportation, and communication. Materials for making and modifying the structures we live in and the clothing we wear, good health. Since many people cannot do a lot in their daily lives to ensure that they have clean air to breathe, clean water to drink and bathe in, energy for heating, cooling, lighting, transportation, and communication, materials for making and modifying the structures we live in and the clothing we wear, I think it is most worthwhile to focus on doing what I can to ensure that my local community has nutritious food to eat and good health.
Absolutely.
In service to these goals, I've been gardening organically since 1969. I believe that the more available this kind of info is to the people on the ground, the more all will benefit. I'm also engaged in a related area of grassroots research. Several hundred non-academic researchers around the world are exploring the agricultural and social implications of some newly rediscovered minerals that significantly improve the growth, taste, and nutrition of food grown in soils where they are applied. We've accumulated many reports of significantly increased plant productivity, nutrition, freeze tolerance, and drought tolerance. And I then have a link to examples, my plant links page. And that is linked on my easy page, but I'll give you a link here, subtleenergies.com/Ormus/TW, as in the work, /plant-lynx, as in the links cat, lynx.htm. And also the wet method, the easiest way to concentrate on some seawater, is also described. And also I think it's helpful to realize that growing soil increases carbon sequestration, and that the use of these minerals in keyline plowing has doubled productive soil depth in 1 year.
Wow.
The best way to guard our life on Earth may be to garden life locally. So,
yes,
garden life on Earth is all about gardening life on Earth. Go ahead.
Are you seeing any impact on the bees and the other beings that contribute to garden health?
Yes, absolutely. People have documented, I haven't, but others have documented that there are more bees in the areas that are fertilized with the Ormus mineral nutrients. And
has anyone been harvesting honey from bees in gardens where Ormus has been incorporated?
Yes, and one thing that we've also found, the live oil, it will escape from a sealed container. I mentioned that. And when it escapes, that is an indication that it's responding to electromagnetic fields, and bees are notorious for being driven off by cell phone towers and things like that. Beeswax, if you add it to the live oil, seems to keep the oil from escaping. I think the bees use the wax to keep the ormus in their honey from escaping. I have some ormus oil that I mixed with beeswax, and I made it over a year ago, almost 2 years ago, and it still hasn't gone rancid, and I use it on my skin and my lips and my fingers, and it still seems to have the same benefits. And the beeswax,
so I would think it makes it more like a salve then, once you add the beeswax to the oil.
Or like a balm.
Mm-hmm.
Don't tell them at airport security that that's what it is.
Well, speaking of healthy balms, has anyone been combining Ormus with CBD oils and things like that?
With what kind of oils?
CBD, cannabinoid oils.
Oh yeah. I used some hemp seed oil in this balm. A lot of this information that I've mentioned in this discussion is already up on my website, and you can search my website, subtleenergies.com, by typing into Google site, SITE, space, subtleenergies.com, and whatever word you want to search for. Site, calm, and balm will give you a link to the live balm that I made. December 4th, 2014. I put about a cup of beeswax in a stainless steel pan on my wood stove and melted it. When it was mostly melted, I added about a cup of live oil Ormus concentrate, started on September 27th, 2014, using Himalayan salt, Celtic sea salt, and grapeseed oil. I also added about a cup of live oil concentrate that I made, started on September 27th, 2014, using Himalayan salt and hemp seed oil. Also, I included about half a cup of live oil Ormus concentrate made using clean stripped turpentine and Himalayan salt. I started on October 6, 2014. And the rest of the whole thing is on there. And that is the stuff, December 4th, 2014 is when I made it. So it's almost 2 years. And it's still very, very healthy.
So are you seeing any impact on the seeds then? I mean, from vegetables and, increased growth in veggies that you're growing and then in the seeds harvested from those plants?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yeah, and the seeds seem to be more viable. And other people have documented this as well. And some people have done it with trap water, and some with seawater. So that's what helps us to understand that that the Ormus isn't the white precipitate; it's in the white precipitate. It isn't water; it's in the water, the trap water. It isn't trap water itself; it's in the trap water. That these are ways of concentrating the Ormus, and the live oil is another way of concentrating the Ormus. And I wouldn't put oil on your plants, but trap water and seawater precipitate both have a very powerful benefit. Also, look at my my plant links page, and you'll find studies that have been done. Some of them actually scientific studies. Louisiana State University Ag Center, Hanafi zucchinis, Hanafi green beans, and then some things that were done on drought tolerance and bloom the desert, and then a lot of the rest of them were. Do you have any house plants?
I have actually at the moment I just have one little bamboo plant in my house. So, but I live in a pretty small, tiny house basically. So
have you ever had lots of house? Have you ever had several house plants?
Yes.
How often did you water them?
Every few days. I mean, just based on, touch, generally.
Mm-hmm. I water my houseplants. I've got 16 houseplants, and I water them every 6 to 8 weeks.
Wow.
They don't use as much water. And I've got pictures and report on my plant links page. It's shamrock.htm. And describing that and pictures. And lots of other pictures of other plants that I've grown and other people have grown. myplants.htm is pictures of my garden and my plants in my garden.
Early in our conversation, you mentioned something about one of the early extraordinary things that was seen was Ormus elements levitating.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Can you speak about that?
Well, we've demonstrated that. A couple people have reported that, but a better example of it is the tallest trees in the world in along the coast of Northern California, redwoods and sequoias and so on. There are trees that are over 300 feet tall, and conventional science can't explain how water gets to the top of those trees. But water has to get to the top because there are leaves at the top of the trees that depend on water. And scientists say, well, it's transpiration pulls them up. Well, transpiration pulling them up is good for about 16 feet. Something else is going on. And I think it's the Ormus minerals in the water. They're downstream from some of the richest mountaintops with Ormus in them around. And that those Ormus minerals help them levitate, help the water levitate to the top of the tallest trees.
Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah.
So, Barry, we're coming close to the end of of this episode, what would you most like to communicate to listeners?
Gardening life on Earth is all about garden life on Earth. The best thing we can do is grow some food of our own and teach our friends how to grow it, and teach our friends to concentrate these Ormus minerals for plants and animals and for themselves, and teach them how to teach others. Because this information is, I think it's the greatest scientific discovery in human history. I think it's been discovered before. It's a rediscovery. I think it's the manna and the prana and the chi and all of the things in ancient religious, different religious organizations or groups. And another thing is join the Ormus forums and discuss this. There's an Ormus group there's several Ormus groups on Facebook and a bunch of Ormus groups on my forums page on the Easy page. So those are things that you can do to help get the word out, help people understand what's going on here, because it's so hard to get people to understand this and accept it. It just sounds too good to be true. And even when I start off talking about my giant nuts, that scares people away.
Well, I would think in these times when everyone, by and large, is aware of the depletion of nutrients and the extreme environmental toxicity that we're all facing, that many people are looking for and seeking those things that they can incorporate into their lives and that they can do themselves, as well as
Absolutely.
availing themselves, that others are making. So for people to begin, if they want to begin with a product, where do you suggest they go? And
I suggest that they go to my sources page and find a source that's fairly close to you. Closer seems to work better for many people, because they don't have to ship as far, and shipping can deplete the Ormus. If you're using it for plants, there are several Ormus providers that sell plant products.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Click on my sources page on the Easy page. And there's, I'd say about 80 Ormus providers there.
That's a lot to choose from.
Yeah. And I do have a lot of them with location.
And I highly recommend to listeners that you spend the time and study and begin the process of making your own Ormus. I know I'm gathering what I need to do that right now, and I look forward to working with you, Barry, going forward. You're a mentor to so many people, and such a good example. Thank you so much.
Well, don't blame me. It's your own damn fault.
So listeners, again, for more information on Ormus and to get in touch with Barry, visit subtleenergies.com and join us tomorrow Sunday, August 28th from 12 to 2 Pacific, when our guests will be Eostar Kamala of Web of One and Richard Rowski of Louisiana Flood Relief Family of Friends, who in alliance with Rainbow Rapid Response will give us an on-the-ground report of relief efforts in flood-stricken Louisiana. And again, I'd like to thank Anton Miserak for music used in this program. And we'll close with another piece from Eostar Kamala and Web of One's Music Today. And to become part of the Utopian Realities Slope Earth Aid mission, contact White Buffalo Nation at gmail.com and visit wbnslope.weebly.com and our White Buffalo Nation Facebook page, and support the Slope mission at gofundme.com/slope. Your contribution helps keep this mission going as we work to get solutions to all the people and life on Earth. Thank you again, Barry. It's a pleasure and an honor.
Thank you.
The hidden sap of a sacred tree, a drop of water coming toward me, a love letter that's never been sent, pots of gold earned and spent. They all become spirit in the end. They all become spirit in the end. A shell hiding the rarest bird, thieves' hands and a crown jewel. Clouds made by the hidden hand, an open gate at the rainbow's end. They all become spirit in the end. They all become spirit in the end. It's only a matter of time, only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time, only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time, only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time, only a matter of time.
Go to foliumpx.com or call 855-365-4867. Why? Well, if you live along the coast, you see the water pollution as you grow closer and closer to any major city. You notice that the water color changes as you get closer to the city. Why? Well, because you know it's pollution, and it's water pollution. The pollution in the water ranges from debris all the way to runoff from the rain, which includes heavy metals from the smog. Heavy metals such as lead and arsenic and mercury, all of this is coming from the pollution from cars and from industrial facilities. Go to foliumpx.com or call 855-365-4867.
Together, let's save and sustain life on planet Earth. That's yours, mine, and all of ours, on and in the land, waters, and air. Thanks for joining us. Till next time, this is Lisa Wolf for Slope. Save and sustain life on planet Earth, Earth Aid. Let's give the Earth and all her children freedom from fear, lack, and degradation, and bring a utopian reality now.